up, Cucks? It's the hater, and we're going to talk about the Wednesday Night Wars once again. You know what I mean? I watched both episodes, and I was going to make this video last night, but I'm glad I didn't because there's a lot of things that just came to my mind, like overnight and stuff like that. And I mean, both shows were complete garbage, right? I mean, starting with NXT, I think NXT has lost in the ratings battle for the last few weeks, which goes to show that Keith Lee just really isn't a big draw. I mean, let's be real. I like Keith Lee myself, but let's be real. This guy's not very exciting. You know what I'm saying? Keith Lee is good in the ring, and he has presence, but he's not very exciting. And you have to be exciting too. Like, typically that's part of the whole look thing. And Keith Lee has like the size and the capacity. He's like a believable guy. Like, him beating up Brock Lesnar would not be this like, how could this happen moment? You know what I mean? However, he's fat. I mean, let's just say it like it is. He's a fat wrestler, right? And that doesn't typically draw, all right? And he's more Samoa Joe than he is Brock Lesnar, right? And even though he's good and he's athletic, he has limits. I thought he cut a pretty good promo when he came to face Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross continues to be a complete disappointment in my opinion. I don't know why anyone likes this guy. He is the most generic wrestler of all time. You know what I'm saying? He's just a bald guy who's angry. There's nothing about him. I've looked and I've looked and I've looked. Like I said, maybe he cuts good promos. But thus far, the only thing I've seen is Scarlett take the little hourglass and turn it around so it starts trickling down. And then I saw her give him a contract today. And then when Keith Lee opened the contract for some reason, there was a fireball inside. Hadouken, Hadouken. You know what I'm saying? Why the hell did Keith Lee even open it? Right? But Keith Lee signed it, and then what's his face? Karrion Kross signed it. The end. You know what I'm saying? There's no need to look at the contract anymore. Is Keith Lee a lawyer? He should have stayed in the contract, given it to Regal. Regal opens the contract, he gets burned. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, it was what it was. The fireball was kind of like a nice touch because it's always fun to see the little props here and there. However, it's completely inconsistent with the character of Karrion Kross. This is something that you would expect like Cameron Grimes to do. You know what I mean? This is something like when Triple H threw a fireball at Kane back in the day in like 1999, right? You expect that kind of wrestler to do it. Like the small, or in Triple H's case, the smaller than Kane guy, right? The smaller, cowardly wrestler does things like that, right? Karrion Kross is not presented as a small, cowardly wrestler. He's presented as a guy that Keith Lee's supposed to be afraid of. He's not this mind games guy, right? And I mean, he had his match with Danny Burch, I think it was. Yeah, Danny Burch, who is underrated. I like Danny Burch. I mean, when I say underrated, I don't see any difference between Danny Burch and Karrion Kross. I really don't. Like, I don't think Karrion Kross looks tougher. He's like a little bit bigger. That's it. He has zero character, zero personality. So he might as well just be with Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan, and he can be the guy that holds up a number 3 when they come out. The match was all right. Like, Karrion Kross, he has some cool moves, like the Doomsday Saito suplex. It really is convincing in the sense that it looks like a move that hurts. You know what I mean? And he did a choke bomb, but nothing really that impressive. I mean, he has a sleeper hold finish. Like, I don't see why this guy is better than Samoa Joe. And I don't think Samoa Joe is good at all, So he beat this guy, but before he beat him, we have to tolerate their long-ass entrance and Scarlett Bordeaux coming in there just screaming, pestilence, and like, pray and fall. Like, it's so goofy. Like, anyone that looks at that and thinks it's anything but goofy is just, I don't understand what you're thinking, man. Like, maybe someone can explain it to me what I'm still missing. Because I see nothing from Karrion Kross. I see absolutely no difference between Karrion Kross and, what's his name? Damian Archer? What the fuck's that guy's name? Damian Priest. I see no difference. I see no difference between him and Danny Burch. He's just another guy. There's nothing cool about him. I mean, he has like an overproduced entrance, and I could see why people might like the entrance. I think it's shit personally, but I'm not excited at all by Karrion Kross. And I mean, I'm gonna assume that Keith Lee is going to win because he just gave up his U.S. title, or whatever the fuck it's called, the North American title, So I think he's gonna, probably retain so they can extend this feud a little bit. But I don't really see why Karrion Kross needs a title. I mean, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. This guy has Mr. Brody Lee written all over him. Like, he's going to lose, and then he's going to fade into obscurity, I feel like, for a while. Like, I mean, I don't see... He's not interesting. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing interesting about him. I don't understand, man. I think this is like one of the weakest NXT classes ever. The only saving grace is that they could start to focus on big guys, and I think overall that's good. I will say, after all the shit that I just talked about Karrion Kross, I'm much more excited about, let's say, Karrion Kross versus Keith Lee, even though I just talked shit about both of them, than I would be about Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano, which is an opening match on an episode of Velocity. You know what I'm saying? I don't care about that at all. At least two big guys that can go, that are athletic, is entertaining. You know what I mean? Basically my whole issue is this. Keith Lee, I think he's dropping the ball a little bit because he needs a character. And Karrion Kross is the perfect example of a guy who sucks, but the fans kind of attach themselves to, right? Like, a lot of people are like, oh, what's so great about Sami Zayn? He has no character. But you could say the same thing about Karrion Kross. And my whole issue here has to do with that, right? My whole argument is, why is it that people like Kevin Owens don't get a pass, but Killer Kross gets a pass to the eyes of, I guess, the anti-smarts, whatever the fuck they want to call themselves, you know? Why? Why does this guy get extra credit? He hasn't done anything. He has Baron Corbin written all over him, you know, except at least Baron Corbin has a form of charisma and he has personality. Baron Corbin actually has personality. Karrion Kross is all pray and fall, angry face. Like his entire character is pray and fall, angry face. And then Scarlett comes out with an hourglass. Like, it's fucking stupid, man. That's not cool. You know? But it is what it is. So let's move on from that. Actually, before we do, the other noteworthy thing was the return of Velveteen Dream. Cameron Grimes won the triple threat match. Well deserved. Cameron Grimes has been stepping it up. This guy, there's something there. I don't know how to explain it, but there's something there. When I see Cameron Grimes, they had a little vignette, you know, with him, and he's like kind of losing his mind a little bit, like being like a crazy country boy. It works. It works. He is cool. Cameron Grimes, there's something about him. There is a griminess to him, number one, like a grit. Like you can tell this guy, this guy looks like he's a tough guy. You know, he acts like he's a tough guy. He's interesting. He has awesome moves. You know, he did that little it's kind of like a C4. He did it on what's it called? Like a Spanish fly, like a standing Spanish fly on Keith Lee, but it's like when the guy's running against the ropes. It's like a counter almost. That's an awesome move. The cave-in is sick. He does it like 50 times better than Kofi. He's not like the biggest guy, right? But he's not small either, and he wrestles like his size. You know what I mean? Like, not over the top like his size, but he's the kind of guy that'll rake your eyes, and his move is like he'll catch you off guard and that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that he won. He deserved the win. He deserves the title as far as I'm concerned. It's either him or Dexter Lumis. Everyone else sucks, you know? Then we had Damian Priest versus the fat guy. I forget his name. Fat Boy, Bull Dempsey, as I like to call him, right? Fat Boy won. Who gives a fuck? No one cares at all. Like, this guy, he's going nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Damian Priest is getting on my nerves too, you know? He's not that good. Then there was a bunch of other bullshit matches that I forgot. So let's move on to TNA. What's it called? The AEW, all right? This was one of, I'm not even exaggerating, this was one of the worst AEWs I've ever seen in my life. For two reasons. The first one is probably the more egregious one, but I think it's the least interesting to talk about. And that was the main event. Chris Jericho lost clean to Orange Cassidy. I will let that sink in for a few seconds. Okay, now that went inside your guys' heads, let's go over it very, 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 very slowly, all right? Orange Cassidy is a comedy jobber, right? He wrestled Jericho in the main event in like a $7,000 obligation match where I guess the winner pays the loser $7,000. He beat Jericho clean, right? I mean, I think he won with a roll-up. I don't remember. It was like that weird roll-up thing. It wasn't even a roll-up. It was just like a pin, right? But it was presented, you know, as a roll-up, right? He beat Jericho clean. Now, let's keep this in mind, okay? This year, according to Dave Meltzer, Jericho was like the number one guy, right? He was like the number one wrestler. He was like number one on that list of 500 wrestlers, right? So arguably, this is Jericho's best year in his career, according to that list. And in this year, or I guess that was last year, but whatever, in the year following, he's losing to Orange Cassidy, right? Now, beyond the fact that Jericho lost, he had people interfere on his behalf, right? They couldn't beat Orange Cassidy with that. Orange Cassidy escaped the walls of Jericho. Okay, that's fine. A lot of people escape the walls of Jericho. I remember when Shelton Benjamin escaped the walls of Jericho, I remember thinking, how is this jobber escaping the walls of Jericho, right? But it was what it was. Then he kicked out of a code breaker. Now, I understand the code breaker is not the finishing move in AEW. It's the Judas effect. The code breaker is more like a signature move, right? Nonetheless, motherfucks, the code breaker has beaten people like Edge at WrestleMania. He has pinned the likes of Undertaker. You know what I'm saying? Jericho has beaten everyone there is to beat, and many of them he has done so with the code breaker, right? He has won world titles with the code breaker in the A company, and now Orange Cassidy kicks out of the code breaker. I have nothing more to say. AEW is the bottom of the barrel. This was a horrible decision. It was a horrible main event. It makes absolutely no sense. Orange Cassidy is one of the worst wrestlers they have there. Before this match, he was 7-5. That means like 5 Joey Janela's or whatever else they have on AEW Dark. 5 of these guys have beaten Orange Cassidy, but he beats Jericho. All right? The other thing that was really, really stupid, right? There was a lot of stupid things here, but one of the matches was Cucky Rhodes versus Scorpio Sky, right? Now, they kept talking about in the match how if Scorpio Sky wins, he would become the first African-American TNT champion. And further in the match, they explain how he already is the first ever African-American AEW tag team champion, right? Now, if you're retarded, right, like Jim Ross must be retarded, you know? Tony Schiavone, these people must be really stupid. You know, we give a lot of props to JR for being like a good mind of the business, but it doesn't preclude the possibility that JR is a very stupid man, right? Because to say a sentence like that, you have to be very stupid. I'll explain why. When someone says that, let's say in WWE, let's say that there had never been, an African-American Intercontinental Champion, right? Or Ron Simmons, we know, was the first African-American world champion, right? But let's just say like it's the present day and there has never been an African-American Intercontinental Champion, right? And R-Truth wins the title, right? It would be appropriate for Michael Cole to say R-Truth is now the first ever African-American champion, Intercontinental Champion, right? This only works though if the title has a long history, right? Because the implications are, when you say something like that, the implications are that African Americans did not have the opportunities that other wrestlers had, and that's why they did not become Intercontinental Champion, right? That there was some inherent racism that prevented a black guy from becoming World Champion or Intercontinental Champion. But when your company is 1 year old, you can't make that claim, because what you're saying effectively is that last year your company was racist. That's what you're saying when you say he might become the first ever African American TNT champion. There's only been one TNT champion. There is no prestige in being the first African American TNT champion when you're also the second champion. The more prestigious thing is you are the guy to beat the first champion, irrespective of your race. But I understand that AEW is like a race baiting company. I understand that they do this. They're like an SJW, like, oh, let's make it all about that, right? But when you say, like, think about how stupid this is. Scorpio Sky is the first ever tag team champion. Him and Kazarian were the first tag team champions in AEW. But instead of presenting him as the first ever tag team champion, it's more convenient for the narrative to present him as the first ever African American tag team champion. The implication being, again, one of two things. Either there's been several tag teams where they've been only white people, which would mean that there's some sort of racism involved in the industry or in the company, or there's only been one champion. So therefore, there's a lot of races that are excluded. You know, Scorpio Sky would also become the first bald, TNT champion. He'd also become the first 5'8" TNT champion, or the first guy to wear long pants. There's a lot of firsts that he would get. But for some reason, they single out race, right? As if it's some sort of accomplishment. It would be an accomplishment if for a long time this hadn't happened, right? Because of certain barriers. You understand what I'm saying? Like, for example, there was the first ever gay Olympic gold medalist, right? It was that guy who won in figure skating, right? The implications there are he's the first gay one because either a lot of people that have won gold medals were gay and were afraid to admit it, or there's been some sort of prejudice towards gay athletes, right? And this guy was able to overcome a barrier. How can Scorpio Sky overcome the barrier that shouldn't be there, number one, because it's 2020, and number two, if it is there, it's because of AEW, right? So when you say, oh, what an achievement, Scorpio Sky is the first ever African-American TNT champion if he wins, right? All you're saying is that for the last 11 or 10 months that AEW has been around, we have been holding down African-Americans, right? Because otherwise, it wouldn't be an accomplishment. Do you get what I'm saying? This is how stupid the people that write these things and the people that say them as well. You can't give people a pass on this one. This was extraordinarily retarded. Like, if you're JR, if you're Taz, if you're Tony Schiavone, and you were told to say this, you should have been like, hold on a second. The implications of this are clear, and they make us look like assholes, right? That's what should have happened. But it didn't happen, motherfucks. So there you go, right? And the people that thought it was important to point this out are race baiters, right? Probably racist, in my opinion, right? And they're also the worst category of human you can be. Incredibly stupid, motherfucks. Incredibly stupid. This proves once and for all that the people behind the mental people behind this company, the ones that make decisions, are all incredibly dumb human beings, including Tony Khan, Cucky Rhodes, Cucky Omega, whoever decided to point out the fact. Basically, all they're saying is Cody Rhodes is wrestling a black guy now, and black people have never become champions in our company, right? And the implications being that there's something wrong with the system that would prevent black people from being champions, right? That's what is implied when you say this person is the first of his kind or her kind to become a champion, right? That's what people don't say. Oh, he's the first guy with red hair to become champion, right? Because there's no reason to believe that people with red hair wouldn't become champions of something. But there is reason to believe why gay people, black people, Hispanics, anyone else, right, might not become champions, right? Because of the culture and because of actual racism in the past that prevented people from competing if they were gay or if they were black, right? That's the idea, motherfucks. But when you say it about this company, right, you're saying one of two things. Either you're just explaining how stupid you are, right, which that's what I'm assuming they're doing, giving them the benefit of the doubt, or two, you're just saying AEW is racist. So there you have it, motherfucks. That's what I gotta say about that. As a result of that, plus the Jericho situation, this was the worst AEW episode of all time, motherfuckers.